Let's talk about the Hawks to finish up now.
Cool.
I don't know what to do with this team. This feels like the biggest, what the fuck is going on in the Eastern Conference to me, certainly. Over the course of their last, let's go with 15 games, they are, I believe, I'm trying to do math in my head really quickly. They're 3 games under 500 in that time. I know that. They were 13-10 at one point, and they are now 3 games under 500. So they're 6 games under 500 in their last 19 games. And it feels like things aren't going well in terms of the way that DeJounte Murray and Trae Young are mixing, which is something that I kind of talked about in the preseason in terms of having questions just about like Trae doesn't love to move off the ball. DeJounte likes to have the ball in his hands, but when he doesn't have it in his hands, he's something of a guy that teams will sag off of, although he has made 34% from 3 and has been willing to at least fire from 3 this year, which has been helpful. I don't totally know what to do with them because on top of it, like it just feels like it's time for John Collins to be somewhere else. John Collins is a really good player. He's averaging 13-8 right now, and he's just better than that. He's not shooting well from 3. You expect more. You expect more from him, but also it's just like very, very difficult to really get anything from him, I guess, with how much Trae Young and DeJounte Murray have the ball in their hands. Feels like they haven't found the mix yet for Collins. Yeah, and then it just feels tricky. Like DeAndre Hunter is okay. He's not like a dude. You know what I mean? He is a good on-ball defender that doesn't quite make as much of an impact off the ball. AJ Griffin's been a really nice surprise, but AJ Griffin isn't ready to, like, frankly, probably be a starting player in the NBA yet. He's just a little bit limited still, as good as he's been this year for a rookie. He either needs to be the 5th guy out there or he needs to be off the bench. And I don't know about you, but like when he's out there, like it feels like he's more dangerous than like DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella. Like it almost feels like at times like he's like their 3rd best option.
Well, it's hard because he's like their one offensive outlet other than Clint who really makes an impact. And that's the other point too. Like this team is, and Clint has had a good season, but like this team is incredibly reliant on him being healthy because I think it's helped because Onyeka's been better recently, I think, but it's not been a great season for him. Part of it's been like I don't think that he's been he still struggles playing full-time 5. Not just by virtue of size. His game doesn't fully mesh with Trae's yet, in my opinion. I think Trae really benefits from having a lob threat. And not that he can't be a lob threat, but like Onyeka really thrives in that, being able to hit his touch shots around the rim, being able to get into that like 4 to 10 range and be active roaming around the dunker spot. And so it just hasn't been I think that it can come with time. I really believe in him still a ton moving forward and who he's going to be. But I think how small he is has really it continues you feel it in watching him.
Yeah, you do.
But again, like I do think it's been better recently. But I think it's just you talk about a front court that has a lot of guys, but just how they fit together is really awkward. And exactly like you mentioned with Collins, like it's tough because like he hasn't shot the ball well. I believe in him to be a better shooter than he's been this year without question. I think it's just a slump. It's part of how he's been used in the offense. He doesn't get nearly as many touches as he has in priors. It's been waning for a while.
Well, he doesn't get as many ball screens either.
Part of the thing. Well, exactly. Like he's just in a weird spot. They're like, okay, be this off-ball player who doesn't get this in the same way that you used to. That hasn't worked. And to be fair too, like defenses have treated him as a non-threat most of the time. It's a weird balance. Trying to figure out what their stuff is. Because Bogdan's been back. That's been nice to see. I think that he's brought some nice things, especially as a shot maker and being able to function in second side stuff. But again, like the offense isn't inventive. It doesn't feel impactful most of the time. And sort of similarly to what we talked about with Portland, but in a different way, like their outlet guys just aren't there yet or aren't just aren't really there, period, in terms of what they need to really juice the offense. So it's a lot of it kind of reminds me of like a really average brand of instant coffee is kind of how I would describe the Hawks right now.
So like Landry, like I've talked to Landry Fields a couple times. Landry Fields, really, really smart guy. Landry Fields is also like a first time head of basketball operations who's going to have to make a really difficult decision here. And this is a tricky roster to try and manage. And I'm really interested to see what this looks like here moving forward with Fields. I think that he could be like great at this potentially, but he's in a tough spot. And this is going to ultimately be like one of the more consequential decisions of his tenure is how does he try to fix this front court mix? So I'll ask you, maybe not specific players, but like, what do you think they need to do in order to fix the front court mix?
That's a good question.
What are the kind of players they need to target? Maybe is a better way to put it.
I mean, well, they definitely need to trade John. Like, just do it because of what with where this is at right now. It's just not tenable. But like, even like to me, they need movement shooting in a bad way, like a very bad way. That's what I look at in their front court. Like, they need more dynamic. And I think part of that too, like they don't run dynamic sets. Like, they aren't very active in finding great ways to get their guys looks. But I think you inherently, by getting somebody who is a movement shooter, you add in looks like that. Like if you get Doug McDermott, like not even saying like that's like I'm not trading John Collins for Doug McDermott, but like point being, like getting a guy like that who you can bake into an offense and get more gravity without necessarily having the ball and trained just by having it trained to DeJounte's hands, like that's important. And also just having more. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, here's the other complicated part about this, right? Like, they traded a lot of their draft capital for DeJounte Murray, right? And they traded Kevin Huerter, for a pick. But if you're trading John Collins, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to fix the front court? Are you trying to get, like, multiple pick assets back? Because, like, I sent you a trade last night that, like, is kind of, like, off the wall and, like, crazy, I think. And, like, I don't even know if I would do it for all of the teams involved, but it was like basically like the Hawks get multiple first round picks, take on the Yvonne Fournier contract, take a miracle flyer on Cam Reddish again in their case, and then like give the Rockets John Collins and then give the Knicks Eric Gordon or something like that, right? And I don't even know if I like that move for the Rockets. I don't even know if I like that move for Atlanta, frankly, but like if they're trying to replenish the pick capital, it makes some sense in some way. But if they're trying to do something else where they're trying to like rebalance the roster and trying to find like a few different options, it becomes harder. The other problem for them is that it does not seem like ownership wants to pay the luxury tax there. And, it feels like they've said they will pay the luxury tax, et cetera, et cetera. I don't feel like they're going to pay the luxury tax for a team that's 19 and 23 at the very least, or 19 and 22, whatever they are. They're like $1.5 million away from the luxury tax right now. I don't know if I want that either. So I don't know if they're going to want that. Like, I don't know if they're going to be able to take on money to be able to like get something for John Collins that is valuable. It's a really hard trade to make for them because they have to weigh what happens if Trae Young asks out. I think that they're just like rebuilding on the fly on some level, building around DeJounte, Onyeka Okongwu, AJ Griffin, etc., and getting a bunch of picks and young players back. If he doesn't ask out and this continues to fail, like you have to really consider trying to cash in on DeJounte Murray again when he has one less year left on his contract. But like if it works somehow and you can make a move that evens out the roster a little bit more, maybe you can like try to make this fly a little bit better. It's a hard decision to make what you prioritize in a John Collins deal, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think it's just a tough spot because like you mentioned, I think a lot gets lost in that this is an ownership problem more so than a front office problem. Like if you just have cheap ass ownership, that really limits what you can do. Like I mean, I'm not I'm not Landry Fields. I'm not Travis Schlenk, but I would imagine that things go down differently in the Kevin Huerter trade if they get the green light from to actually be over the cap. But I mean, exactly like you're mentioning, it's like, okay, well, what is our direction? What are we trying to do with this? What are we trying to do moving forward? Because I mean, I got pushback on this from Atlanta fans. If you make the move that you made for DeJounte Murray, like that's not that it made them a title contender, but the idea is, okay, we're building into what this group is and trying to be better and being competitive. Okay, well then continue taking steps alongside that. Like I don't think you can just be where you're at right now and be cool with that. Like there's got to be steps alongside this. And it's, again,
Well,
it's not.
they move Kevin Huerter then.
Yeah,
Like trading for DeJounte Murray, then moving Kevin Huerter are antithetical decisions to one another. Like it does not make sense to do both of those things. And it never made sense. That was a wild decision that it feels like was based on money, not based on, Kevin Huerter being not a fit anymore. Because what would be valuable to put next to DeJounte Murray and Trae Young? Maybe a floor spacer who can knock down shots and make shots off of movement and actually create some offense that way. What would be a way to accentuate Kevin Huerter's game? It would be to add a guy who can take on tougher defensive assignments and not force Kevin Huerter to take on tough defensive assignments often. What are we doing here? Is my point. Like, it's incredibly frustrating to me. Incredibly frustrating.
yeah. No, I agree. It's just a weird spot, and it's not even like I have liked some of the stuff that's come out of this team, but it just feels it feels muddled, and I think moving Collins is the first thing to kind of unraveling that. But I don't know what the long term and even, or I should say, just more short term. Like I don't know what the rest of the season is supposed to be for them. Like this
Look, so
doesn't.
just in terms of salary cap matching, you're going to have to take on someone, right? Like you're going to have to take on players for John
Yeah.
Collins, right? How are you trying to even out the roster? Are you trying to slide DeAndre Hunter down to the 4 and pick up some wing players to even out the roster? Are you trying to pick up a better like mix at the 4 who's like more of a floor spacing 4-man, like almost like a Harrison Barnes maybe or something like that? Like, what are you targeting? I guess would be my question.
I think for me, kind of like you just mentioned, like with what this team is right now, and I think that they just need to lean into being having some multiplicity on defense. Not saying that they're going to be good on defense. Like I think obviously they've been better this year. They've had more signs, but I think to really juice the offense, like DeAndre is just not a 3 on offense. Like a lot of that is how he sees the court. He still pauses a lot with the ball in his hands. He's just better as a 4. I think that I actually like would argue like you're going to get a lot more out of him playing the 4. Like you can be a little bit more comfortable with him doing some of it's not secondary creation, but like secondary scoring stuff if he's able to take advantage of slower footed guys potentially. And that only is going to come by having a 3 who is able to actually be guarded like a 3. So to me, and exactly like, okay, well, who are you trading John Collins for that is going to bring that back to you? And maybe like, I'm not, kind of like you hit on, I don't know that AJ Griffin is ready to be a starter, but in essence, if you like the idea is like I want AJ Griffin and DeAndre Hunter to be the starting wing tandem ideally next year. I think that's the hope that you're able to develop into that, or you get somebody at 4 who is you're feeling good about that with. I the biggest thing like DeAndre just being healthy this year, like woo, thumbs up. That's the first step, but like exactly like you're hitting on. I just don't think that it's tenable for him to continue being the 3 with what the offense is right now.
I don't know if these two teams want to make a move again because the last one created a lot of friction within the basketball world. Atlanta and Dallas line up in a really interesting way, I think, though, with these two rosters. Dallas has all of these random shooters on the wing and at the 4, Dorian Finney-Smith, Tim Hardaway Jr., Reggie Bullock. Like you could make a case to try and get back Christian Wood. And can you imagine John Collins, rim running for Luka Doncic?
I mean, that would be sick. I would love to see it.
That'd be phenomenal, I think, in a real tangible way. if they decide, like, if they can't come to any sort of agreement with like Christian Wood, I wonder if trying to get Collins is like your long-term solution at the 4. Just how they acquired Spencer Dinwiddie at the deadline when they knew that Jalen Brunson's contract was coming up and kind of got out ahead of it. I wonder if they could do something like that.
See, my issue would be, I think with all the difficulty that there's already been to fit in John Collins, then how are you fitting in Christian Wood? Like, not that they're the same player, but
I'm not even saying that Dallas moves Christian Wood more than anything. I'm saying
okay,
that, like,
I missed on that.
maybe you do something like Dorian Finney-Smith for John Collins, or like Dorian Finney-Smith and some other stuff, obviously, for John Collins, right? It kind of evens out the roster a little bit more in Atlanta. Dallas gets its potential long-term pick and roll partner for Luka that doesn't probably require a crazy amount of assets to do, which still probably opens them up to another star trade down the road, which I think is important for them because I think they can move 4 first-round picks again after this season, assuming the Knicks pick transfers. That's an interesting one for me, I think.
Yeah, that's something I need to think more about. I just, exactly like you mentioned, I just don't know who is making the trade for Collins and that you get enough back that it's worthwhile. Like, I know, I mean, stuff had been floated plenty about Collins for Jay Crowder, and what does that do for me? Like, I mean, on the one hand, like you mentioned, I think that gives you the ability to be a little bit more, open things up, how they want to play offensively. I don't think Jay's better than John, like even close to that. But I don't know, like maybe, like, I know Washington has been reported in being interested in John. I don't love the idea of the Collins Porzingis front court. But like, okay, are you getting Denny Avia or Rui Hachimura back or something? Like, that doesn't really move me. Like, I think Denny's interesting. Like, that could be interesting on the Hawks. But again, like, you still have some of the same issues. Like, that's not necessarily helping what you're doing floor spacing wise. They don't want to be like, I think for the most part, if you want to get the most out of somebody like Denny Avdia now, you do have to put the ball in his hands a little bit because otherwise he's not getting guarded. It's just not a lot of great options right now, which means, of course, something random is going to pop up and it's going to look great. But here's another. What if, think about this. What if they traded John Collins for PJ Washington? Not saying that either team should do it, but I mean, a little bit of just a swap. See, it seems like there's more traction, especially with PJ being an impending free agent. Not that it's perfect or anything, but.
So in money wise, because PJ is not making a crazy amount of money, what are you sending back? You probably have to send back Kelly Oubre in that case as well.
I guess. Yeah.
Doesn't really help their floor spacing, but I guess does kind of help their shot creation when one of Trey or DeJounte is off the court. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not like.
I get what you're going for.
Yeah,
but
exactly. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard.